Hello, everybody, and welcome to the My Endurance Hub weekly Q&A. We've had such great attendance over the past few weeks. Apologies for not making it last week, but we're back here, and hopefully we have some good participation numbers. The My Endurance Hub space has been growing like crazy. It's awesome. We're really excited. We've got people signing up every day, and it's pretty cool to see them trickle in. If you haven't had a chance to check out all the other stuff we have in the hub, definitely do. There's so much really great content, and hopefully for your endurance journey, it really helps. Reminder that these sessions. Oh, I got a message here just saying somebody's in the waiting room. Not sure how to get them out of the waiting room. Usually you can just join. I see Diana just joined us. That's awesome. Hi, Diana. Nice to see you on here. I hope you have some good questions for us today. Reminder that all of these sessions are recorded, and if you want to go back and check them out or check any of the question and answer periods that you didn't see, definitely you can see them in the back end of the My Endurance Hub space. Always some great questions, and often if somebody else has a question, it's helpful for everybody else as well. So the way to answer questions, the easiest way is to go into the chat function. So you'll see that bottom right of the screen. There's a little sort of chat bubble. If you have questions, throw them in there. I do my best to take them in the order that they come. And we've so far been able to get through to everybody. But if for some reason we don't, if we run out of time, you can pop them in the discussion part of the My Endurance Hub, and we can answer them there. So let's get cracking here. I see somebody's trying to join. Let me just message them here. Diana, are you on? Give me a thumbs up in the chat box if you can hear me. Not yet. And I know a couple other people are trying to join here. Maybe we're having some issues. Oh, Brian, welcome. Nice to see you on here, Brian. Maybe we'll just wait a minute or two just to let people have a chance to get in. Aiden, thanks for joining us. Not sure if this is the same Aiden that's joined us for the last couple of weeks. Unique name, so maybe it is. Hopefully the answers that we're giving you are helping. If you're back, maybe that's a good sign. I was just away this weekend at some bike racing. My son does velodrome racing. I don't know if people are familiar with that. It's the one that you mostly would see at the Olympic Games. He's not at the Olympic Games, but it's track cycling, which is kind of rare in North America, but it's where they go round and round the track. And so we just spent a weekend doing that. And it's, my background is in triathlon, but it's really fun to dive into a new sport. This is a really cool sport. The bikes have no gears and no brakes, and they're a fixed gear, and you can't stop pedaling. So there's no freewheel at the back, meaning like you can't stop your legs moving. So these little kids from age probably 7 or 8 upwards are just ripping around the tracks with no brakes and no gears. And they learn how to go high up in the banking and then dive down and get on wheels. And it's really cool because they just gain such a high level of competency on the bike, moving in packs. Certainly if you're new to cycling and there's an entry-level program for adults, like if for some reason you live in a place with a velodrome, which would be very rare, and there's an entry-level program for adults, I'd really encourage you to do it. It's a great way to learn biking skills. The track that we have has an artificial turf in the middle. So the kids actually spend the bulk of their learning time on a very low risk environment. They're not clipped into the shoes. It's easy if they fall over, they're just on soft artificial turf. But what they get is really amazing bike handling skills, awareness of the people around them. So if you're new to biking and you have an opportunity to learn in that environment, it's really, really great. will really help you on the road and really help you if you ever want to ride with groups of people. I think I see some questions coming into the chat here, which is awesome. So let's get started. Aiden says, yes, it's me. I've been enjoying these. Thanks. Aiden, thanks. That's really cool. Thank you so much for that compliment. And it looks like Aiden's got a question as well. He says, my back gets pretty sore when I run too much. Is it okay to replace a run workout with a cycling workout? Well, first of all, what I would do is maybe dig a little deeper as to why your back is getting sore. You know, that might be something you might want to check with a physio or a chiropractor or a sport. What do we call them? A sport trainer. I'll remember the word. Somebody that's educated in sport injuries would be a good place to start, just to make sure that you don't have something that's going to become chronic. You really want to get on top of that. Maybe it's a biomechanical issue that you can fix with your running. Maybe it's the amount of running you're doing. You know, maybe you're not spreading out the running load enough and having enough rest in between sessions. So first of all, I would start there. Now I'm going to answer your question. Can you replace it with a cycling workout? Well, yeah. The beauty about triathlon in general is that we have 3 sports that we can build fitness with. And your heart and lungs generally don't know the difference between the 3 sports, or really any sport for that matter. Now, what is different is muscle specificity. So, you know, you can't ride your bike all the time and expect to be a great runner. It doesn't necessarily work like that. But what you can do is ride your bike and add to your aerobic endurance fitness. Your heart and lungs will get stronger if you ride the bike. So, you know, if you're injured running, for sure, substituting out those other sports. You know, cycling's a great way to get higher intensity work without the impact load that running has. So if your back is sore because of the impact load or some biomechanical issue, but on the bike it's not sore, you can still maintain quite a bit of fitness. Now, what you'll lose if you're not running is that impact tolerance. So that ability to, you know, throw your body weight up in the air and land on one foot over and over and over again. You can't really replace that with cycling, but you certainly can maintain a really great, amount of fitness with cycling. Other sports too, you know, swimming does the same thing for heart and lungs. You've got those elliptical trainers. So, you know, maybe trying that. It's, I don't know if you've seen the elliptical trainers at the gym. They're sort of those very weird machines where your legs kind of go around in a circle, but there's no impact. That might be a great addition. Rowing machines. So lots of opportunity to build fitness without actually running, as long as it's pain-free. But again, getting on top of why you're sore is the thing you should do first. Brian says, is it worth it to buy triathlon handlebars for my bike? So I think what Brian's referring to is what we call aero bars. These are the bars that if you watch a triathlon, most people will have on their bikes. And it allows your arms to be in this position kind of up in front of your face. Let me show you here. So if I'm on the bike, instead of my hands being out here, my hands can be here like in a tuck position, like if you see with skiing. So the handlebars actually have like an elbow pad and then a place for me to hold on to, handles for me to hold on to. So what I'll say, Brian, is a couple things. If you're totally new to this sport, maybe you signed up for a sprint triathlon, and you just want to give it a try. A road bike is fine. A mountain bike's fine. Like any kind of bike is totally fine. You don't need to go and spend a whole bunch of money out of the gate. However, if you plan on getting stuck into this sport and really giving it a good crack, and maybe you're thinking that you'll do a sprint and then an Olympic and maybe a half and maybe even an Ironman one day, then it's definitely worth investing in some of the triathlon specific gear. So the handlebars that you can put on your bike, the triathlon specific bars, on a triathlon bike, like if you go to the store and buy a triathlon bike, it will have a generally traditional triathlon setup, which is very different set of bars. So we call it a base bar, which sort of goes straight out. So you can hang on where the brakes are here. And then there'll also be the aero bars that come up so I can put my hands here. So I basically have 2 positions for my hands. And so a triathlon bike generally will have that. Now, let's say you have a road bike. It's not a triathlon bike, but you want to put those bars on. You can buy what are called clip-on aero bars. And those bars are designed to be clipped on to a normal set of road biking bars. Now, road biking bars we call drop bars. And they're the ones you see on any generally any type of road bike, where they come out and then they loop around and they look kind of like the horns of a bighorn sheep. That might be a good reference point if you know what a bighorn sheep horns look like. They're kind of curved over, so your hand position can be here. It can be, where the brakes and the gears are. It can be like down on what we call the drops if you want to get a little bit lower. And you can clip those triathlon bars right on top so that you can do it. So yes, not a bad purchase, much cheaper than buying a whole new bike. Usually they're probably $100 to $200 would be my guess. And they go on pretty easy. What I would say though is I wouldn't just slap them on there. I would go to a bike shop. Hopefully there's a good bike shop in your town. Maybe they can source them for you, or maybe they already sell them. But what you also need to consider is what the positional change might be required if you plan on spending a lot of time there. If you're in a traditional road biking position, if your bike is set up that way, then just putting those bars on and kind of getting into them, it's not necessarily ideal. You might need to make a little bit of change to the position of, your lower body on the bike. Usually that means moving the seat forward and a little bit up so you can get up and over onto those bars. Excuse me. So it's worth it if you plan on doing lots of triathlons. It's worth it if you have someone you trust that can actually help tweak your position a little bit if you need to. So yeah, not a bad purchase if you're getting stuck into it. Aiden says it could be because I'm old. I think Aiden's referring to his sore back from running. Welcome to the club. I know, yeah, sure. With age, sometimes things creep up on us, but I also think that if you really have a problem there, you should get it checked out. There's maybe some muscle imbalances or something that you can solve with a little bit of work. But yeah, I'm hearing you. My back's sore every night. Brian says, do you have a good way to get yourself motivated? How do I get myself to do the training or feel more motivated to do it? Brian, that's a good question. I use a few different strategies. It's hard to know. On some days, some things motivate me more than others. I would say one of the most important things you can and should do is have a longer term goal. So for me, it was to, win a certain race, or it was to go a certain time, or it was, in the beginning of my Ironman racing, it was to actually just finish the thing. That was my goal. And as long as I was really clear about that objective, motivation came relatively easy, because on the days where I was struggling a bit, I could always think ahead a little bit and think, oh, it's going to be worth it when I cross that finish line, or if I win that race, like it'll be worth the effort to get there. So that's thing one. I think your motivation has to be anchored maybe in something a little longer term that you're fighting for, that's challenging, that scares you a little bit, and that you're really, really committed to. So, I was more motivated if I signed up for something and paid my entry fee, because then I was really committed. And then I had something like looming in the horizon. That kind of got me motivated, sometimes from a slightly being scared perspective. So what else motivates me? Well, that's one thing. That's an external motivator. We call those external motivators, something outside of ourselves. But there's also internal motivation. So for me, it was, I loved having a sense of accomplishment. I love feeling fit. I didn't like the feeling if my body couldn't kind of go and do really cool, epic things. So there was internal motivators for me that also were, worked really well. I'll be honest with you, full disclosure, some of my motivation wasn't necessarily that positive or pretty. Like I had, a little bit of shame around some of the other sports that I'd done in my life, and felt like I hadn't really succeeded in the way that I wanted to succeed. And that could be taken as maybe a slightly negative thing, but that was very motivating for me. When I think back, at the time, I don't necessarily know if I had the self-awareness to recognize that, but now with a bit of age and a bit of distance from it, I'm like, yeah, there was part of me that was scared I wasn't really measuring up to something. Like I had a bit of insecurity around it. And as that might sound a little negative, but gosh darn it, was it ever motivating? And I would hazard a guess, if you really dug with a lot of people, that might be part of their motivation as well. So, I think in the moment, I was perhaps motivated by sometimes external things like winning a race or winning a paycheck, or, even a little bit of fame was nice. When I was competing and I had success, maybe you get in a magazine or something. Those are all external motivators, and things we're not necessarily supposed to say motivate us because they're a little materialistic, but sure, they were motivators. But again, I think with time and with age, now for me, I'm very, very, very motivated by just feeling physically fit and feeling mentally well. To be honest, I could care less if I really win anything these days, but I really want my body to feel good and my brain to feel good as I age. So, in the moment, so those are bigger picture things. Gosh, I went down a deep rabbit hole there. God, a little embarrassing. Just kidding. I'm not. Other things that can get you motivated, though, in the moment, that are a little less perhaps dramatic or deep. Music is a great motivator. So if I'm struggling in the morning, sometimes if I crank some tunes that kind of get me pumped up, that's a great motivator. If I'm meeting somebody to do a workout, huge motivator, because I don't want to let that person down. If I really want to get strong, sometimes I'll go do, in the past, I did a little bit of CrossFit training, and that meant I had to go to a space with a coach. And that was very motivating, because there's suddenly people looking at you, and you kind of want to show up and be there for it. So lots of different ways to get motivated. I think you have to discover within yourself what that is for you, and then use it when you need to. Brian, I hope that answered your question. Gosh, I could talk about that forever. I'm fascinated by that side of ourselves. Aiden says, at a race I was recently at, they weren't allowing athletes to wear wetsuits because the water was too warm. Why do they do that? Well, a couple of reasons. One is actually safety. So if you have really hot conditions and a really hot water, and then you put people in a really hot suit and make them swim for half an hour, there's potential risk to overheating, dehydration. So there's risk there. On the flip side, there's also a little more risk without a wetsuit, because wetsuits are buoyant and they keep us afloat. So, I think for the bigger races, unless it's very, very obvious and super hot in the water, generally race directors seem to want wetsuits on. I don't want to speak for them, but it is safer, in a big Ironman event with 2,000 people on the line, if people are on wetsuits, because the things are buoyant, that's helpful. But, there's a safety concern if you overheat. There's also a racing kind of purity or fairness thing, if you want to call it that. Wetsuits generally help people who are weaker swimmers a little bit more. Stronger swimmers will thrive more without the wetsuit. It will really sort of exaggerate or enhance their ability to swim. I was always grateful for wetsuit swims, because it meant I was usually closer to the faster swimmers. It was a disadvantage for the faster swimmers. In non-wetsuit swims, and I had plenty of those, usually a little bit further back. So it favored the swimmers, which was neat. They should have a time where people aren't being supported by a wetsuit, in my opinion. I think that's great. So there's a few different reasons, for the wetsuits versus non-wetsuits. They're a little more strict with the pro fields. I think the temperature is a little lower for pro fields in Ironman and the ITU and World Championships. And it's a little higher for the age group athletes. So Brian says, I've been using caffeine before my workouts, just from coffee or a cola, a Zevia. Not familiar with that brand. I'm assuming that's a brand. What are the positive or negative effects of using caffeine? So look, it's pretty, unequivocal in the research that caffeine is a performance enhancer. There's no question about that. It does a couple of things. Mental alertness is the one we usually attribute it to, but it also helps us metabolize fatty acids a little bit better, which is helpful because we can get energy. Most of our energy at higher intensities comes from carbohydrate. But at lower intensities like Ironman, we can derive a lot of that energy, those ATP units that we need to keep moving, from fat. And so caffeine helps metabolize fatty acids. So it's great. Now, obviously, if you take too much, there's negative side effects that you want to avoid. And it is actually a banned substance, I believe, still in really high quantities. And that's a safety thing, right? Like if you put a whole bunch of caffeine into your body, gosh, it's going to affect your heart and all kinds of things. So you need to tread carefully with that. But is in terms of it, being something that, most athletes, it'd be rare, I think, to find any of the top end athletes that aren't consuming caffeine in some way. And also caffeine's in a lot of things that you may not think about. Certainly the obvious ones are tea and coffee, but a lot of the, quote, energy drinks will have caffeine. Chocolate even has, I think, a little bit of caffeine. There's caffeine comes in from lots of different places. So it's not a bad thing. You just have to be careful with how much you consume. And obviously, if you're being a little irresponsible with caffeine intake, and maybe, I don't want to say irresponsible, but there are caffeine supplements like in pill form. You have to be really careful with that because those are usually very high doses in small amounts. You have a cup of coffee and there's caffeine in there, but there's also water and stuff. So it's a bit more dilute of a form. But certainly people who are using caffeine in the form of a pill or a tablet need to tread carefully there and know what they're doing, and recognize that at certain levels it's a banned substance. So we don't want to do that either. Brian says, yeah, that's a good answer. Thanks for that. Yeah, okay, good. Zevia is a stevia sweetened soda that is healthier than aspartame or sucralose. Oh yeah, so stevia I think is a plant-based sweetener. I don't want to get that wrong. Maybe someone on here is a nutritionist and can pipe in on that. But yeah, I think stevia. Now stevia, I don't know. I gotta do a little checking in on stevia and what the carbohydrate look on that is. If it's, I don't think it's an artificial sweetener, but anyway, I won't go on about that. Okay. Aiden says, I saw a news article where 60 of the triathletes got diarrhea after the swim. Does this happen often? Or what other incidents have you seen like this in triathlon? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at the fact that 60 people got diarrhea. So I'm assuming you mean they're maybe equating, did the article equate the onset of diarrhea to the water quality? You're saying it's after the swim. So I'm going to make that leap. And you haven't mentioned a race name. So that's good because I don't want to call it a race if that's not true. But look, every once in a while, yeah, I've had races where the water quality is debatable. I remember one place, I won't again mention any names, but I remember one place we got there the day before the race and there was a sign saying absolutely no swimming, water quality is terrible. And when we showed up the next day, that sign was gone and we all jumped in and swam. So, and I know some people had issues. So I personally have never seen anything. I mean, that's quite a few, right? 60 people getting diarrhea after the swim is suggestive that there was something in the water that maybe was not right. But does it happen often? No, it's pretty rare. I think the fact that there's a news story about it suggests that it maybe is quite rare. Hopefully it's rare. But yeah, there's some places that you can swim where the water quality is questionable. It's open water. Maybe it's in a city somewhere or close to sewage treatment or something. I mean, that's kind of gross to think about. And hopefully those people are okay now. What other incidents have you seen like this in triathlon? Well, yeah, like I said, there's been probably, look, I raced for 20, 25 years and maybe once or twice there was an issue. I remember once there was something with the fecal matter of the Canada goose population in that particular body of water that was not favorable. And I think some people got some sort of like rash, hive stuff. Yeah, kind of gross. No diarrhea that I remember, but they posted an article. This is great. It says, I think it was the World Triathlon Championships. Oh my gosh! Well, that's big news. I feel like I should have known that. This is from that you posted a link to an article. So if you're in the chat function, if you're on this call, you can check it out. Investigation after 57 World Triathlon Championship swimmers fall sick and get diarrhea in Sunderland race. So worth having a look at that for sure. Feel bad for those people. I'm sure they weren't expecting that at the end of the day. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I'll check that out for sure. Yeah, and if you're on that call and that's interesting for you, go for it. Might scare you up. If you've never done a triathlon before, just to be clear, diarrhea is not a side effect of triathlon in general. Brian says, what type of shoes do you like to wear? I've been using Hoka's, but are there shoes that are better for triathlons? Hey, that's so personal. What I would encourage you to do if you live in a community with a good local running shoe store, go there. Usually those little locally owned and operated stores have really qualified and knowledgeable staff. Chances are those staff members are also runners. Usually people who work in running shoe stores are passionate about running themselves. And they will have the lowdown on shoes. Whatever brands they carry, they should know, what the scoop is with each of the different styles of shoe. But even better than that, usually they'll take a look at your running gait. They'll measure your feet properly, and that's not just the length of your feet; it's like the width of your feet. Shoes come in different widths, which can be helpful. But often they'll take a look at your feet, your running gait, how much mileage you're doing, and then they can recommend a shoe. That's where I would start, rather than just going online and picking some random running shoe, because they're not all created equal, and our bodies are all different. So Hoka's, if they work for you, it sounds like I've been using Hoka's, but are there? Well, yeah. I mean, if the Hoka's are working for you, you're not injured, and then that's probably a good sign that's the right shoe for you. Are there shoes that are better for triathlons? Well, okay, this has multiple answers. The first is that with the development of the carbon plated shoes, that stemmed from the Nike sub 2 hour marathon project years ago. If you want to go really fast, and certainly all the pros do this now, they're wearing a shoe with a carbon plate in it. It's free speed basically. The return of energy from the shoe is much better than one without a carbon plate. That's taking it to a pretty high level, but you'll see most age groupers in triathlons as well, also in carbon plated shoes, because you do get some free speed on the run. So, if you're really thinking about taking it seriously, or you want to think about winning your age group or whatever, then looking into a carbon plated shoe is probably a good idea. But again, going to a little independent, locally owned running store is probably the first place I would go, because all the different manufacturers have slightly different shoes, and you'll have different widths and all these things, and you need to get one that's right for you. You do, however, pay for that. They're much more expensive, so you might not want to train in them all the time. Maybe you get a second pair that's for training that doesn't have a carbon plate, just so you don't wear them out as quickly. In terms of brands being better for triathlon, well, no, all the major brands make amazing shoes these days, and it's really which is the one that works best for your feet. But getting triathlon specific, again, one thing to consider is using elastic laces or some way that you can get in and out of those shoes very quickly without having to do up the laces. So that's not necessarily the shoe, but it's just tweaking an aspect of the shoe that's going to make your life easier in a triathlon. Yeah, long-winded question, or long-winded answer as usual from me. I have a saying, and it's that if you can answer a question clearly and concisely in 30 seconds, I can do it in 45 minutes. Aiden says, I've been using the same bike now for about 15 years. What should I look for in a new bike? How do I make sure to get the right size for myself? Not like my answer for the shoes. Go to a little independent, locally owned bike store that carries hopefully triathlon bikes, and start there. Because again, usually the staff that are in those stores are passionate about the sport they're doing. So in a bike store, they probably all ride bikes. So just that little baseline of knowledge of how it feels to actually ride a bike is a big asset when somebody's helping you choose a bike. They will also know everything about the brands that they carry at that store. They'll know how to look at your size and size you properly. A lot of the good bike stores also have fitting rooms where, if you purchase a bike from them, they'll actually fit you properly on that bike. So they'll make tweaks to the stem length and the handlebar width and the seat height and all these things. So start there. That's the best thing to do, is go in and check with a good store. How do I make sure it's the right size? Well, yeah, their bikes come in all different sizes, and so you probably go online too and just click, and I'm 6'2", what size road bike should I get? And you'll probably get an answer. But there's also the difference in your torso length versus your leg length. That's important for bike fitting. Go to a store and they'll get you sorted. Brian says, oh yeah, I have a carbon fiber insert that I got. It's supposed to work really well. Is there a downside to them, like injuries? I gotta be honest. I don't know. I don't know the answer to whether injury rates are higher or lower with those carbon plated shoes. I mean, they've been around for quite a few years now, so maybe there's some research being done on that question, but I don't know if I can answer that accurately. The downside, is that they're more expensive. My understanding is they don't last as long, but they have a shorter timeline, or a shorter number of, say, miles or kilometers that you can put into them. But again, that's maybe old information now. I don't know if that's still true. So yeah, you're stumping me on that one. I don't want to answer inaccurately with that. Brian says, thanks. That is helpful. Maybe that's about the shoe question. You're very welcome. I'd love to sit on here and say, buy this very specific shoe in this size, but it doesn't really work that way. We're all different. And so we should, go check it out. Those are some great questions today. Gosh, especially the diarrhea one. I love that the question was is that normal? You know why I love that question? Because if it's normal and you're interested in triathlons, maybe you're not interested anymore. Gosh, I'm still like 12 years old at heart. Brian says, do you still train? Yes, but it's so different now. My life as a pro triathlete, Ironman, seems like a completely different person, to be honest. I don't really have, I haven't created the space in my life for that anymore. When I retired 10 years ago, I was really, really done in a good way. I feel like I had no regrets. I left nothing, I feel so good about, the years that I spent doing it. I have a family now, and my time and energy goes a lot towards that. But do I still train? Heck yes. Every single day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't do something. It's just different. And to be honest, it's not really pointing directly at anything anymore. And, when I was racing, it was always directed at some kind of outcome, like this race or that race or points or something. Now it's for mental health, first and foremost. I feel very different if I don't do a workout in the day. I don't feel myself. It definitely affects my brain chemistry dramatically. But I also love existing in a physical body that feels really good. My goal as I age is to still be able to do whatever, whenever. So I play hockey, I can go hike, I can go ride a mountain bike, I can pretty much go do anything because every day I'm still moving. And so I value that more than anything at the moment, is just the ability to exist in a body that can do whatever. I don't take that for granted. So my training looks like this. I run every second day. Running's super efficient with a family. I can throw my shoes on, and in 45 to 60 minutes, I can do a really great workout. On alternating days, I do weights. I lift. I go to the gym. I feel really good when I do that kind of work. I play hockey a couple times a week, and then I do various other sports, tennis, whatever. And I ride mountain bikes. So I have one or two things a day still, and it's just a very different objective now. Aiden says he laughed at the fact that I keep laughing about diarrhea because I'm apparently 49 going on 8. And Aiden says he's still interested. Good, Aiden. I can say with certainty that the majority of triathlon events you do will not result in diarrhea. They will result, hopefully, in a finisher's medal. Great questions. Gosh, it looks like maybe that's it. If anybody has any more questions, please pop them in. These have been great today. I've had a good laugh. Oh, Aiden says, thank God. My question to you, Aiden, I have a question back, is that in the event that the answer was yes, 95% of triathlons result in diarrhea and a finisher's medal, would you still do it? I will wait for that answer. Oh, you're welcome, Brian and Aiden. Yes. Yeah, thanks for jumping on. You guys have been great today. I really appreciate it. And again, recordings, these are recorded. And if you want to check it out after, jump into the back end of there of the My Endurance Hub space and check out everything else we got in there. We have daily endurance moments, like little kind of 2-3 minute pieces on various things. We have master classes from incredible people. We have webinars in there. There's so much great stuff in there. So please get in and check it. And the last comment I'll leave to Aiden here. My question is, if he knew for sure he would get diarrhea and a finisher's medal, would he still do triathlon? And he says, yes, I would do it for the medal. Aiden, you're a good sport. Okay, that's a great place to wrap it up. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day, and we'll see you same time, same place next week.